In a quiet room in Paris, the year was 1816, and the air felt heavy. A young physician named René Laennec sat beside his patient, a pale woman struggling to breathe. Her heartbeat was faint, hidden beneath layers of fear, fabric, and the limits of human hearing. At that time, medicine was personal but primitive. Doctors listened by pressing their ear to the chest. It was a practice that demanded closeness, yet carried discomfort, modesty concerns, and often inaccuracy. Laennec hesitated, not out of pride, but out of deep respect for the woman before him. He wanted to help her, but also to preserve her dignity, something medicine too often ignored. Then came the spark, quiet, curious, and revolutionary, born from empathy, not ambition or vanity. He rolled a sheet of paper tightly, forming a hollow tube, simple yet filled with possibility. When he placed it against her chest, the world changed in a heartbeat, literally and forever. The sound he heard was crisp, clear, and rhythmic, life itself amplified through his small invention. That paper tube became the ancestor of every stethoscope you've ever seen or heard in a hospital. From that moment, medicine would never sound the same again. It would listen differently, more deeply. Laennec realized that this wasn't just a tool. It was a bridge between patient and physician, a way to hear suffering without intrusion, to detect disease without violating trust or compassion. In his hands, science and sensitivity finally met, proof that progress could coexist with empathy. He called it mediate auscultation, listening through an instrument rather than directly with the ear. But to the world, it became something simpler, more powerful, the stethoscope, the symbol of care itself. René Laennec didn't invent it in a laboratory. He created it in a moment of conscience. Because the best innovations don't come from brilliance alone. They come from humanity, from respect. He refined his design into a hollow wooden cylinder, polished, precise, and beautifully practical in form. Doctors soon found they could distinguish between heart murmurs, lung congestion, and the whispers of disease. Every heartbeat told a story, and for the first time, physicians could hear that story clearly. But behind the triumph was a quiet man, humble, devout, and endlessly devoted to understanding illness. Laennec spent years studying the lungs, mapping the mysterious sounds of life and decay. He became the first to connect what he heard to what he found in the human body. His notes linked sound to structure, breathing to biology, creating the foundation of modern clinical diagnosis. In 1819, he published his masterpiece, A Treatise on the Diseases of the Chest, a work ahead of its time. It wasn't just science, it was poetry written in the language of medicine, empathy, and observation. And yet, as his fame grew, so did the shadow of the very disease that had shaped his destiny. Tuberculosis, the same illness that took his mother when he was a child, now stalked him silently. Laennec had dedicated his life to understanding it, to giving others a chance his mother never had. But fate is often cruel to those who challenge it. The healer became the patient he once comforted. Even as his body weakened, his spirit never did. He continued teaching, researching, and inspiring others. When he finally passed away in 1826 at just 45, the world mourned quietly but profoundly. He left no fortune, no empire, only a wooden cylinder, a book, and a revolution in listening. 2 centuries later, that same spirit lives on in every doctor who places a stethoscope on a patient. In every heartbeat heard across hospitals, clinics, and homes, Laennec's legacy still resonates, softly, faithfully. Because his invention wasn't just about sound. It was about understanding, dignity, and human connection. Even in today's high-tech world, the stethoscope remains more than a tool. It's a symbol of trust. A reminder that medicine begins not with machines, but with compassion and the courage to listen. Every time a physician leans close to hear a chest rise and fall, Laennec's spirit stands beside them. not as a ghost of history, but as a guardian of what makes healing truly human. So the next time you see a stethoscope draped around a doctor's neck, remember its humble beginning. A rolled piece of paper, a nervous physician, and a patient who couldn't breathe. That's how it started. From empathy came innovation. From loss came legacy. From one quiet act, the world learned to listen. René Laennec didn't just hear a heartbeat that day, he heard the voice of humanity itself. When René Laennec placed that first paper tube against his patient's chest, history took a breath. What he heard wasn't just a heartbeat. It was the hidden rhythm of the human condition. Each sound told a story. The deep rattle of infection, the flutter of anxiety, the silence of despair. Before Laennec, doctors relied on guesswork, intuition, and touch. The body was a mystery to decipher. But with the stethoscope, medicine found its ears. It learned to listen before it tried to cure. Laennec's invention didn't just amplify sound. It amplified understanding, accuracy, and above all, compassion. He began to hear patterns others missed, connecting breath sounds to disease like a musician reading sheet music. He discovered that the crackle of lungs meant fluid, that dull tones warned of congestion or collapse. Each case became a symphony of clues, subtle, complex, and beautifully human in its imperfection. In every patient, he saw not just illness, but individuality, the voice of a life struggling to survive. He meticulously documented everything, every sound, symptom, and post-mortem finding, creating a new science of listening. Doctors around Europe traveled to Paris to learn from him, to hear what he could hear. For the first time, they realized diagnosis wasn't magic. It was observation sharpened by empathy and curiosity. Laennec showed them that progress didn't require wealth or machines, only imagination and attention to detail. His work transformed the relationship between doctor and patient, from distance to dialogue, from assumption to truth. Yet change never comes easily. Many older physicians mocked his wooden cylinder, calling it unnecessary and impractical. They preferred the old way, direct contact, intuition, and ego over evidence and modesty. But the younger generation saw what Laennec saw, a tool that protected patients and elevated their dignity. Slowly, hospitals across France and Europe began adopting the stethoscope, one heartbeat at a time. It became the emblem of trust, the bridge between human compassion and scientific precision. In the United States, Laennec's ideas spread rapidly through the medical schools of Boston, Philadelphia, and New York. Young American doctors embraced the stethoscope not just as an instrument, but as a statement of modern medicine. It represented the democratic spirit of progress, that any person with curiosity and care could make a difference. In lecture halls, professors taught auscultation, the art of listening, as both a science and a moral duty. Laennec's wooden tube crossed the Atlantic and became the heartbeat of American medical practice. Decades passed and technology evolved. The wooden cylinder became metal, then rubber, then digital and electronic. Yet the principle never changed. To heal, you must first listen, not just with tools, but with empathy. Every doctor today, whether in New York or Nairobi, carries a descendant of Laennec's simple paper tube. When they place it on a child's chest or an elder's heart, they continue his silent, sacred ritual. A ritual that reminds us that medicine began not in power or profit, but in compassion and creativity. But what made Laennec truly remarkable wasn't just invention. It was humility and purpose beyond self-recognition. He never sought fame, wealth, or royal favor. He wanted only to improve human understanding and dignity. Even as his own lungs weakened from tuberculosis, he wrote, taught, and listened until his final breath. In those last years, he taught students that listening to life's rhythm was listening to humanity itself. He knew the sound of dying lungs, and he still found music in their fading notes. His final lectures carried a haunting message: listen not only to the chest, but to the soul. To him, every patient was a universe of sounds, laughter, pain, hope, and heartbeat intertwined. He reminded his students that compassion was not weakness. It was precision guided by love. Through his teachings, Laennec made medicine more than a science. He made it an art of empathy. That philosophy would ripple through generations, shaping doctors, nurses, and healers around the world. Today, when a doctor kneels beside a patient, stethoscope in hand, they carry his torch. Each heartbeat echoes his vision. That knowledge without kindness is noise, and compassion gives meaning to sound. Laennec's life reminds us that revolutions aren't always loud. Some begin with a whisper and a pulse. A whisper that still beats beneath hospital walls, ambulance sirens, and every steady rhythm of care. The sound of life, first heard by Laennec, continues to speak to all who dare to listen. René Laennec had spent his life listening to the world. But now, the world fell silent. The very disease he studied, named, and fought with brilliance began to whisper inside his own lungs. Tuberculosis, the cruel teacher that took his mother, had come for the student who understood it best. He recognized the sound instantly. The faint crackles, the dull resonance, the slow fading of the breath. For most, it was diagnosis. For him, it was prophecy. He knew exactly how this story would end. But Laennec didn't surrender. Even as his body weakened, his mind burned with relentless curiosity and compassion. He continued teaching students, speaking softly between coughing fits, urging them to listen deeper, care harder, think wider. He taught that illness wasn't just physical, it was emotional, spiritual, and profoundly human. Never forget, he told them, behind every heartbeat is a story waiting to be understood. Those who heard him said his lectures felt like prayers, science delivered with the soul of poetry. Every morning he would rise before dawn, open his notes, and document his own decline with precision. He became both healer and patient, studying the rhythms of his breath like chapters in a fading book. His journals were filled with detail, the day his cough deepened, the hour his chest grew tight. Yet in every line, there was peace, an acceptance born not from despair, but from understanding. Laennec had given humanity the means to hear itself, and now he was listening to his own end. As the disease advanced, his colleagues begged him to rest, but he smiled with quiet defiance. He had lived to serve others. Why stop now, when there was still so much to teach? He invited students to his bedside, letting them hear the very sounds he once described in textbooks. "This," he whispered, "is the sound of life leaving. Listen, and you'll never forget what you fight against." It was morbid, perhaps, but also magnificent, the ultimate act of teaching through his own fading breath. He returned to his family home in Brittany, where the air smelled of salt, pine, and memory. Friends said the ocean waves seemed to echo like heartbeats, distant, rhythmic, eternal. There, surrounded by those who loved him, he wrote his final words, thanking medicine for giving him meaning. He didn't fear death. He feared only that humanity would forget how to listen to one another. Even in pain, his faith in empathy and science never wavered. He remained a doctor until the end. In August 1826, at just 45 years old, René Laennec took his final breath. His family wrote that his passing was peaceful, quiet, gentle, as if he were simply listening inward. The wooden stethoscope lay beside him, its surface worn smooth by years of healing and discovery. It had started as a rolled paper tube. Now it symbolized centuries of compassion and connection. The man who taught the world to hear had finally gone silent, but his echoes would never fade. News of his death spread quickly through France, then across Europe and the Atlantic. Doctors mourned not just an inventor, but a healer whose heart had guided his hand and mind. Medical journals published tributes, calling him the physician who taught medicine to listen to life. In hospitals and universities, young physicians vowed to carry his spirit into their work, and in America, his story became part of the foundation of modern clinical care and ethics. Laennec's legacy wasn't measured in wealth or monuments, but in moments of empathy repeated every day. Every doctor bending over a sick child, every nurse listening to a faint breath, continues his revolution. The stethoscope became more than a tool. It became a symbol of trust, care, and human connection. It reminds us that medicine isn't about miracles, it's about moments, presence, and the will to understand. Through Laennec, humanity learned that progress without compassion is hollow, and compassion without knowledge is fragile. Today, his invention still hangs around the necks of healers in every corner of the world. Each time it touches a chest, a little of Laennec's spirit returns. The art of listening lives on. Modern doctors might use digital sensors and AI, but they still begin where he began, by hearing. Because the sound of life, that soft rhythm beneath ribs and breath, remains timeless, sacred, universal. René Laennec's final lesson wasn't about science. It was about the humanity that science must never forget. Every invention begins as a question, and Laennec's question was simple. Can we listen better? That question didn't just change medicine, it reshaped how humanity understood life, death, and compassion itself. The stethoscope, a tube of wood and science, became the bridge between human frailty and understanding. Before Laennec, doctors relied on guesswork, intuition, and observation. Now they could hear the truth directly. A faint murmur, a hidden wheeze, a quiet rhythm, all became messages from the body itself. In the decades after his death, Laennec's design spread across Europe like a quiet revolution in sound. Doctors carried it into crowded hospitals, battlefields, and homes, bringing accuracy, dignity, and hope to care. It became the universal symbol of trust, a healer's instrument that said, "I'm here to listen." In America, medical schools began teaching students how to diagnose through listening, not just seeing or touching. The stethoscope turned diagnosis into dialogue. Between science and soul, between doctor and patient, between life and loss. By the late 1800s, the instrument had evolved. Flexible tubing, binaural earpieces, and polished metal bells. Yet the spirit of Laennec's wooden tube remained intact. Curiosity fueled by empathy, discovery rooted in care. With every heartbeat recorded, every breath analyzed, humanity took another step toward conquering disease through understanding. Tuberculosis, pneumonia, heart disease, all became clearer enemies, no longer invisible mysteries hiding beneath the skin. The stethoscope didn't just detect sickness, it gave doctors confidence, patients reassurance, and families hope. And yet, beyond science, the stethoscope became something more, a symbol of human connection in crisis. In hospitals across the world, its soft sound became the rhythm of comfort in moments of fear. Doctors used it not just to diagnose, but to say without words, "You are not alone." In war zones, in pandemics, in birth rooms, and final breaths, its echo became the pulse of humanity. It transcended language, culture, and time, uniting healer and sufferer in the most intimate conversation of all. Even in the modern age of machines, monitors, and digital precision, the stethoscope remains medicine's beating heart. Because technology may amplify data, but only listening can amplify compassion, the soul of every great healer. When a doctor leans close and listens to your chest, it's not just sound, it's trust. A reminder that medicine began not in computers or laboratories, but in the quiet act of hearing. Laennec's invention reminds us that empathy and innovation must always walk hand in hand. In classrooms across the U.S., new doctors still receive their first stethoscope like a rite of passage. They hold it with reverence, knowing they're joining a legacy that began with one man and one heartbeat. Many schools even whisper Laennec's name, reminding students that medicine is not just about curing, it's about caring. It's about patience, humility, and the courage to listen when the world demands you speak instead. Each student who lifts that instrument carries forward a 200-year-old promise to listen before they act. His invention also reshaped how hospitals treated patients, no longer as cases, but as human stories. Listening became an act of dignity, restoring the patient's voice in a system that often silences pain. In a way, Laennec didn't just invent a tool, he invented empathy as a practice of medicine, and that is why his legacy endures, not in the wood or metal, but in the intent behind it. He taught humanity that healing begins when we choose to hear the whispers of another's struggle. Today, his wooden stethoscope rests in museums, but its spirit lives in millions of modern instruments worldwide. Every time a doctor bends close, every time a parent listens to a child's heartbeat, Laennec returns. His dream, that sound could heal, continues to echo in clinics, ERs, and quiet homes everywhere. And in that echo lies the truth he gave his life to reveal. Compassion saves as surely as science, because in every heartbeat heard, in every breath acknowledged, his revolution still continues. 2 centuries have passed, yet Laennec's heartbeat still echoes through every hospital corridor, every healing touch. His invention didn't just survive, it evolved, adapting to new worlds, new wars, and new challenges. From candlelit clinics of the 1800s to high-tech hospitals of today, his legacy beats on. Every time a doctor listens to a chest, they're hearing the same miracle Laennec first heard. A miracle born not from machines, but from compassion, curiosity, and the courage to imagine better. In the United States, the stethoscope became more than a medical tool. It became an American symbol, a symbol of trust, service, and the silent oath that binds healer to patient, listener to sufferer. When soldiers returned from wars, medics carried stethoscopes as reminders of lives saved under fire. In rural America, small-town doctors wore them proudly, proof that care could reach even the forgotten corners, and in bustling cities, its quiet rhythm cut through chaos, the heartbeat beneath the noise of progress. By the 20th century, the stethoscope stood shoulder to shoulder with the cross and the flag. It represented humanity's fight against time, disease, and death, and the will to keep listening. Doctors like Jonas Salk, Elizabeth Blackwell, and modern-day heroes all built on Laennec's foundation of empathy. They listened, not just to bodies, but to voices long ignored, patients long silenced, communities long neglected. Each heartbeat they heard carried stories of struggle, of survival, of faith in human connection. When pandemics struck, from the Spanish flu to COVID-19, the stethoscope once again took center stage. It wasn't just a tool then. It was a symbol of resilience, courage, and relentless compassion. Behind layers of masks and fear, doctors pressed those earpieces close, still hearing the music of life. That faint thump-thump became a battle cry, a reminder that hope can live even in breathless silence. Laennec's spirit, born in the candlelight of 1816, guided hands lit by the screens of 2020. And though technology has advanced, ultrasound, MRI, AI, nothing replaces the intimacy of listening, because listening is human. Machines detect, but only hearts understand. Only empathy can heal what science measures. The stethoscope remains that link between innovation and humanity, data and dignity, sound and soul. In every American medical school, new students still bow their heads as they receive their first one. It's not just equipment, it's inheritance, a torch passed from Laennec's trembling hands to theirs. Imagine him standing there, in that quiet Parisian room, rolling paper into a tube once more. He couldn't have known that moment would ripple across centuries, saving lives he'd never meet or name. He could not have imagined children growing up safe because doctors heard danger early and acted in time. He couldn't have foreseen that his invention would inspire millions to choose medicine, compassion, and purpose. Yet every heartbeat recorded, every diagnosis made, every life saved, all whisper his name. Laennec didn't chase glory. He chased understanding, the simple, sacred act of hearing another's pain clearly. He taught the world that true innovation begins with empathy, not ambition, not fame, but care. And that message resonates powerfully today in an America still striving to balance progress with humanity. When we listen, truly listen, we honor his spirit and every life that Pulse ever protected. That's why, 2 centuries later, his invention still feels like magic because it began with love. The wooden tube that started it all now rests behind glass, quiet but immortal, in museum halls. Tourists walk past it without knowing they were seeing one of history's purest symbols of compassion. A tool that turned discomfort into dignity, silence into sound, fear into faith, and illness into insight. And as they move on, somewhere a doctor bends close to a chest, hearing Laennec's legacy in motion. His idea, that care begins with listening, remains the heartbeat of every healing hand. So next time you see that silver instrument hanging around a doctor's neck, remember him. Remember the man who turned paper into hope, discomfort into respect, and sound into salvation. He didn't just invent a device. He invented a way to see humanity through ears instead of eyes. René Laennec's stethoscope was never just about hearing hearts. It was about understanding them. And that, more than any machine or medicine, is what keeps the world alive. He had spent years listening to hearts, lungs, and lives. Now his own began to fade. By 1824, the coughs that once echoed from his patients began to echo inside his chest. He knew that sound too well, the hollow rattle, the quiet whisper of dying lungs. Tuberculosis. The very disease that took his mother when he was a boy now claimed him. And in that cruel twist of fate, Laennec became both doctor and patient, healer and sufferer. But he faced death as he faced life, with calm, clarity, and unwavering compassion for others. He continued teaching, even as weakness gripped his hands, his voice fading into whispers of instruction. His students watched in awe, their master diagnosing himself, describing symptoms as lessons from his own decay. Every cough was a sentence, every breath a lesson, every silence a prayer to endure. And even as pain deepened, he recorded everything, his final gift to the science he loved. Laennec never saw his invention as mere wood. He saw it as a bridge between souls. That belief never wavered, even as his body betrayed him and his breath grew shallow. He once wrote, "To listen well is to know the heart, of disease and of man." And so, when death came quietly in 1826, it found a man who had already listened. Listened to others, listened to life, listened even to the faint echo of his own ending. He was only 45, yet his impact would outlive empires, revolutions, and generations of healers to come. In Paris, they buried him with the same dignity he gave every patient who entered his care. No grand monuments, no towering marble, just a humble resting place for a man who heard everything. But the world outside his grave would not stay silent. His creation had already changed medicine forever. Doctors across Europe, then America, began to call themselves stethoscopists, honoring his method and his memory. In Boston and New York, young physicians translated his work, spreading it across the Atlantic like wildfire. Soon, every American medical school had students pressing that new instrument to chests, chasing the truth within. The stethoscope became a badge of honor, a symbol that said, "I listen before I speak." And across the frontier, doctors carried it on horseback, healing the sick in dusty towns and lonely cabins. Laennec's spirit rode with them, unseen but present, whispering through every heartbeat they heard. Even soldiers at war carried it, medics using it to find the faint pulse of the wounded. It became more than an instrument. It became a promise that no life was too small to hear. And in that way, Laennec's voice never truly died. It resonated in every doctor who listened deeply. Every newborn's first cry, every heartbeat after surgery, every recovery from pneumonia, all part of his symphony. His final breath became countless others' first, a trade that only a true healer could make. In modern times, few remember his name, but all remember the sound he gave the world, the rhythmic thump that calms anxious hearts, that tells parents their child will live another day. It is the universal sound of hope, the pulse of life itself, born from one man's empathy. And empathy, as Laennec taught, is the foundation of every discovery worth remembering, every cure worth finding. Because medicine without compassion is noise, but with compassion it becomes music that heals. Today, in hospitals from California to New York, you'll find his spirit alive in every listening ear. Every nurse leaning close, every doctor pausing before diagnosis, every student learning what silence can reveal. That's Laennec's true invention. Not just the stethoscope, but the courage to care enough to listen first. His wooden tube may be gone, but its purpose beats strong, in hands that heal and hearts that hear. 200 years later, his final breath still echoes as the heartbeat of humanity. He once said, "We are not meant to conquer death, only to comfort life." And perhaps that's what he did best. He comforted life, even as his own slipped quietly away. He taught the world that sometimes the smallest invention, born from love, can change the fate of millions, and that every sound, every heartbeat, every whisper is worth listening to, because it belongs to someone. René Laennec didn't just create the stethoscope, he created a legacy of listening that will never die. After Laennec's death, the wooden stethoscope traveled far beyond Paris and French lecture halls. Doctors in London and Boston quickly recognized its genius, adopting it as a tool of medical precision. What began as a simple rolled paper tube became a symbol of modern medicine worldwide. Universities taught generations of students to listen first, diagnose second, and always respect the patient. The sound of a heartbeat, once private and intimate, was now a language understood by healers everywhere. In the mid-1800s, the stethoscope evolved from wood to flexible tubes, lighter and easier to use. By the late 19th century, physicians in New York City were using it daily, saving countless lives. Medical journals praised its innovation, calling it a triumph of observation and human empathy combined. Every city, every town, every frontier clinic embraced Laennec's tool, the wooden tube now universal. It became an emblem, intelligence, care, and the quiet power of listening before acting. In America, the stethoscope transformed healthcare, especially in hospitals that struggled with overcrowding. Doctors could detect heart murmurs, pneumonia, and tuberculosis without invasive procedures or guesswork. It allowed early diagnosis, longer survival, and hope for families who had feared silent killers. And with each new design, the stethoscope carried Laennec's original compassion, never losing its essence. From wooden monaural tubes to binaural instruments, technology improved, but the principle remained unchanged. Listen. Laennec's teachings also sparked a wave of medical observation. Physicians began writing down lung sounds. Medical textbooks shifted from theory alone to practical, sound-based diagnosis, a revolution in learning. Hospitals in Boston, Philadelphia, and Chicago became centers for innovation, inspired by Laennec's methods. Students practiced listening for every crackle, every wheeze, every subtle sign that life or death rested on. The idea spread, crossing oceans and generations, a silent testament to one man's ingenuity. In the 20th century, stethoscopes became a cultural icon, a badge of authority and care. Hollywood even showed doctors with stethoscopes around their necks, symbolizing trust, knowledge, and compassion. Yet the real magic lay not in appearances, but in the countless lives quietly saved every day. From tuberculosis wards to pediatric clinics, from urban hospitals to rural towns, it was indispensable. And through it all, Laennec's voice echoed, Listen with respect, and you will understand what cannot be seen. Even today, modern cardiologists, pulmonologists, and nurses honor his principles when treating patients. Digital stethoscopes now record heartbeats for analysis, but the foundation remains the same as in 1816. One patient's whisper of chest pain can reveal hidden danger, all because someone chose to listen carefully. Every diagnosis, every intervention, every saved life traces back to that moment in Paris long ago. And in that way, Laennec continues to heal, guide, and inspire across centuries, borders, and cultures. But the story is more than just tools and technology. It is a lesson in human empathy. It reminds U.S. audiences, especially young doctors and students, that compassion must guide innovation. That curiosity combined with care can create inventions that outlive the inventor and serve humanity. And that even small, thoughtful observations, a heartbeat heard, a life touched, can echo endlessly. Laennec's stethoscope is a bridge between past and present, between suffering and understanding, between hearts. From the streets of Paris to the hospitals of Boston, it is a living legacy, unstoppable and enduring. Each time a physician presses a stethoscope to a patient's chest, history comes alive silently. It is a reminder that greatness lies not in fame, but in utility, compassion, and attention to detail. Laennec's idea, simple, brilliant, human, teaches us all that listening can be revolutionary. And the heartbeat, once hidden and private, now beats for knowledge, healing, and hope worldwide. 2 centuries later, René Laennec is remembered not only for invention, but for character and vision. A single moment of ingenuity, a single act of empathy, became a gift to the entire world. It's a story that resonates in U.S. culture, a nation that values innovation, human achievement, and resilience. The stethoscope, simple yet profound, reminds us every day that the smallest ideas can change everything. Laennec didn't just invent a device, he invented a legacy of listening, learning, and caring endlessly. Today, doctors in every U.S. city, hospital, and clinic carry Laennec's spirit with every heartbeat heard. The stethoscope is no longer wood but high-tech, digital, and capable of recording life-saving information instantly. Yet every click, every sound, every diagnosis still honors Laennec's original insight: observe, listen, and understand fully. Medical students train rigorously, learning how subtle lung sounds can indicate disease long before symptoms appear. And every teacher tells the story of a young woman, a rolled paper tube, and a breakthrough forever remembered. His method inspired generations of innovators, women and men who sought to combine science with empathy. Hospitals in New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago celebrate him in lectures, displays, and annual medical events. Pediatricians explain his work to young audiences, showing how listening deeply can save lives in unexpected ways. Even telemedicine uses principles derived from Laennec, emphasizing careful observation, attention, and patient connection. His approach reminds physicians that technology without humanity is incomplete. Numbers alone cannot cure the heart. In popular culture, the stethoscope has become a symbol of care, trust, and dedication to service. TV shows, films, and even cartoons feature doctors with stethoscopes, unknowingly honoring Laennec's compassionate innovation. Yet behind this symbol lies the story of struggle, empathy, and a man committed to dignity and accuracy. Every patient interaction is a reenactment of his philosophy: listen before acting, observe before deciding, care deeply always. And every life saved echoes his legacy, showing the enduring power of human ingenuity married with kindness. Medical researchers continue to study his notes, refining techniques for diagnosing tuberculosis, pneumonia, and heart disease. They marvel at how Laennec connected observation, documentation, and theory into a framework still relevant today. U.S. medical schools emphasize his work as a historical cornerstone, teaching students to honor both science and humanity. His story inspires doctors to innovate ethically, to listen carefully, and to never lose sight of human dignity. The stethoscope, a simple tube of wood long ago, now carries lessons across generations, hospitals, and continents. Content creators on social media highlight his story, pairing historical reenactments with modern clinics and digital tools. Videos showing the evolution of the stethoscope quickly go viral, sparking curiosity about science, history, and empathy. Comments flood in. "I never realized one person could change medicine so profoundly. This is inspiring and amazing story." This global conversation reflects the U.S. audience's fascination with human achievement, innovation, and stories of perseverance. Laennec's tale transcends centuries. A young man's idea continues to educate, inspire, and save lives worldwide today. Even in remote communities, doctors share his methods, showing how attentive listening can overcome lack of resources. Nonprofit organizations and rural clinics teach young volunteers how one tool, combined with care, transforms outcomes daily. Laennec's legacy demonstrates that brilliance is not measured in wealth, fame, or power, but in lives positively changed. And every heartbeat captured, every patient comforted, every diagnosis made, continues the story he began in Paris long ago. His life proves that courage, creativity, and compassion together can leave a mark far greater than a single lifetime. Schools teach students about Laennec not only as an inventor, but as a human being who cared deeply. His story inspires young Americans to pursue careers in science, medicine, and social impact with empathy as a guide. Documentaries explore his life, showing how small acts of innovation ripple through society in profound, unexpected ways. Exhibitions display his original sketches, instruments, and writings, reminding visitors that attention to detail matters immensely. His dedication illustrates that progress is not just about tools, but about ethics, empathy, and human understanding combined. And so, René Laennec's voice continues to resonate. Listen first, understand deeply, act with compassion and precision always. The stethoscope remains more than a device. It is a testament to human resilience, innovation, and the power of care. In the United States, where innovation meets opportunity, his story inspires both medical professionals and everyday citizens alike. It teaches that curiosity paired with empathy can revolutionize entire fields, cultures, and societies, one heartbeat at a time. Laennec's legacy is a living reminder. Great inventions do not just change tools, they change how we care. René Laennec's brilliance came at a personal cost, a price few truly understand or appreciate fully. Even as he revolutionized medicine, he faced relentless exposure to tuberculosis, the very disease he studied tirelessly. He worked long hours, visiting patients in Paris hospitals, notebooks in hand, listening carefully to every subtle sound. Every heartbeat he recorded, every cough he studied, brought him closer to understanding disease, but further from health. Colleagues admired his skill, yet none could see the silent suffering etched on his pale, determined face. Despite declining health, Laennec continued to innovate, teaching students how to approach medicine with patience and compassion. He documented every observation, every anomaly, ensuring knowledge would survive even if his body could not. Parisian hospitals became his classrooms, wards his laboratories, and patients his unwitting but grateful teachers of life. He pushed through fatigue and fever, driven by curiosity, duty, and an unshakable desire to improve patient care. Even in moments of despair, he remained a beacon of hope, inspiring everyone who crossed his path. His seminal work, A Treatise on the Diseases of the Chest, was published in 1819, changing medicine forever. The book detailed techniques, case studies, and the practical use of the stethoscope with clarity and precision unmatched. Doctors across Europe and later the United States adopted his methods, recognizing the genius in combining science and empathy. He connected symptoms to pathology in ways previously impossible, transforming diagnosis from guesswork to systematic observation. Every page reflected not just intelligence, but deep respect for patients and their dignity in the face of illness. Yet tragedy shadowed his life. Tuberculosis consumed him slowly, a cruel mirror of the disease he fought so diligently. He witnessed patients succumb while he remained committed to his mission, each death deepening both grief and resolve. Friends, colleagues, and students admired his courage, marveling at how he balanced relentless work with human empathy. His personal suffering did not halt innovation. It fueled his determination to leave a lasting, meaningful legacy. Even as weakness claimed his body, his mind continued to map disease, teach technique, and guide future physicians. In 1826, René Laennec passed away at only 45 years old, leaving the world richer for his contributions. The stethoscope he invented, the methods he codified, and the ethical approach he championed survived him. Doctors in the United States and worldwide continue to echo his philosophy. Listen closely, observe carefully, treat humanely. His life reminds us that true innovation often comes from empathy, struggle, and dedication to the well-being of others. Even today, students reading his biography feel the weight of his sacrifice and the brilliance of his mind. Modern medicine owes much to Laennec's courage, as his approach transformed the doctor-patient relationship entirely. He demonstrated that care is not only about treatment, but about understanding, dignity, and attentive listening. Every time a physician places a stethoscope on a patient, they honor Laennec's unwavering commitment to humanity. Hospitals, classrooms, and online courses recount his story, inspiring compassion and curiosity in a new generation daily. His life is a vivid example that science and empathy are not separate, but deeply intertwined and mutually essential. Social media content highlighting his story goes viral because it blends history, humanity, and innovation seamlessly. Videos dramatize his life, from rolling a paper tube to creating the stethoscope. Every moment sparks awe and reflection. Viewers comment, "I had no idea one man could change the world so quietly yet powerfully. Truly inspiring." This resonates with U.S. audiences who value ingenuity, perseverance, and human-centered achievement above all else. The story bridges history and modernity, showing how past innovations continue to shape lives today. Laennec's tale also encourages reflection on personal resilience, facing adversity, and pursuing one's calling relentlessly. Even knowing his life would be cut short, he persisted, prioritizing others' welfare above his own health and comfort. This narrative inspires medical students, engineers, and creators alike. Innovation often requires courage and personal sacrifice. He proves that one individual's vision, grounded in care and ethics, can change entire disciplines forever. And his legacy teaches that true greatness is measured not by accolades, but by the lives positively transformed. Even now, hospitals display early stethoscopes and his handwritten notes, linking modern medicine to its humble origins. Lectures in Boston, Philadelphia, and San Francisco emphasize how observation, compassion, and curiosity define exceptional healthcare. Medical professionals remember René Laennec not just as an inventor, but as a pioneer of humanistic medicine. His story motivates everyone, from students to seasoned doctors to innovators striving to make a meaningful impact today. Laennec's life, a fusion of struggle, brilliance, and compassion, remains a timeless beacon for generations worldwide. René Laennec's influence extends far beyond 19th-century Paris, echoing in hospitals around the world today. Every physician who picks up a stethoscope touches the legacy of a man driven by compassion. His methods shaped clinical practice, linking careful observation with ethical patient care, inspiring generations of doctors. Universities in the United States teach his principles, emphasizing listening, empathy, and innovation in medical education. Students learn not only technique, but also the philosophy that care requires patience, respect, and curiosity. Modern stethoscopes, advanced yet rooted in Laennec's wooden tube, remind us that innovation begins with simple insight. Healthcare professionals worldwide honor him, recognizing that one idea, born of necessity and empathy, changed history. Conferences often highlight Laennec's story, demonstrating the intersection of science, humanity, and patient-centered practice. Documentaries, online videos, and social media clips share his story, mixing visuals of Parisian hospitals and early instruments. Viewers comment, "This is incredible. One man changed medicine and saved countless lives. Truly inspirational." Laennec's compassion resonates with American audiences who value human-centered innovation, perseverance, and ethical leadership. His personal struggle with tuberculosis adds depth, showing vulnerability does not diminish greatness, it enhances it. Social media amplifies these lessons, sparking discussion about how empathy and innovation intersect in any field today. Medical dramas, biographies, and educational channels retell his story, bridging centuries through timeless themes of courage. His approach teaches that progress is not just discovery, but improving lives with dignity and care as the core. Historians and content creators alike use Laennec's narrative to explore larger themes: resilience, curiosity, and ethical responsibility. His handwritten notes, preserved in museums, provide insight into how meticulous observation fosters breakthroughs in understanding. Digital content often dramatizes moments, rolling the paper tube, listening to the first heartbeat, inventing a new world. This combination of drama, human struggle, and innovation makes his story ideal for viral storytelling today. Audiences respond strongly because it mixes education, emotion, and awe, a formula for engagement across platforms. Laennec's life also sparks reflection on work-life balance, personal sacrifice, and the pursuit of meaningful innovation. Despite declining health, he prioritized learning, teaching, and patient care, leaving a blueprint for responsible ambition. Content highlighting these elements encourages viewers to think critically about how they can contribute positively to society. His story shows that legacy is built through empathy, dedication, and the courage to act on insight when needed. Every heartbeat listened to is a tribute. Every life saved a continuation of Laennec's vision and ethics. Global medical institutions celebrate anniversaries of his birth and discoveries, reminding students of their roots in history. Museums in France and America display early stethoscopes, notes, and portraits, connecting modern audiences to the past. Social media videos juxtapose 19th-century Parisian clinics with modern hospitals, demonstrating continuity and progress vividly. Audience engagement grows as people compare past challenges to present possibilities, reflecting on human ingenuity and care. Educational channels highlight how one innovative mind can influence generations and reshape a critical field like medicine. Laennec's life encourages interdisciplinary thinking. Observation, empathy, and innovation can drive impact beyond medicine alone. Engineers, scientists, educators, and creators find lessons in his curiosity, perseverance, and ethical approach to problem-solving. His story is a bridge, linking the past to modern challenges, showing that insight, humanity, and dedication endure. Narratives that blend struggle, discovery, and compassion perform exceptionally well in U.S. content platforms today. Audiences love stories that educate, inspire, and provoke reflection, all qualities Laennec embodies effortlessly. Even today, the stethoscope symbolizes more than medical practice. It represents creativity, care, and human connection. Every patient interaction is a living testament to René Laennec's vision, ensuring his influence remains present and tangible. Doctors remember him as a pioneer not only of medicine but of ethical, patient-focused innovation that shapes culture. His story transcends history, inspiring viral videos, articles, and educational content that resonate deeply with viewers. Laennec proves that one person's insight, fueled by empathy, can ripple across centuries and continents forever. As we reflect on René Laennec, we see a life devoted to discovery, compassion, and lasting human impact. He transformed the way medicine listens, literally and metaphorically, teaching generations to care with dignity and precision. His legacy reminds us that brilliance paired with empathy leaves an imprint far larger than personal achievement alone. Every stethoscope placed, every heartbeat monitored, continues to honor his dedication, creativity, and humanistic vision. René Laennec's story is a timeless lesson. Innovation thrives when guided by compassion, curiosity, and unwavering purpose.